Alright, how's everyone doing today? Hello there. Hopefully it's a good Friday for everyone else at the moment. So, I wanted to make a video today about patches. And I think this new set of balance adjustments, this new patch that we're getting, first off, just looking at this list of names here, oh my goodness, this is a big list. I like the names I see on this list as well, and that makes me really excited. I've only read one of the buffs so far, and it was to the point where I had to stop and I was like, I gotta make a video on this. This is too good. So, in the past, Epic 7, I think, has done a very good job. Thank you, Smilegate. A very good job of buffing classic heroes back into the meta. And I think that they've done this really well. They've also flopped sometimes. There are some units that they give buffs, and those buffs fall flat. And looking at you, Judge Kisei. And you know what? This happens sometimes. They miss the mark. I'm happy that they keep on buffing, though. I'm happy that nerfs are rare. I feel like this is a healthy way to play the game, is to have more buffs than nerfs. So, right out of the gate, I read Rule of Light, and as I said earlier, I just had to stop and talk about it. So, right off the bat, for her Rule of Light, Destina, her RGB character, is better. She's better because she got a massive buff, and that massive buff just made her incredible. Much better than the ML 5-star version of her. And she's been that way for quite a while. So, this buff, I think, is really, really good. Very, I think, unique as well. So, let's dive into it. It's been on screen for a little bit. Her S1, the amount recovered will be decreased overall, but it's going to be AoE now. So, I think that means that more HP will be healed in general, but it's going to be spread out more. So I don't know how well that's going to do. I didn't think her S1 really healed that much to begin with, so I'm not too excited about that change, depending on how much healing actually occurs from that. Her S2, though, I think is the best part of her buff. Will consider running her just for her S2. Full disclosure, I think her S2 is incredible. So she once again will be dispelling all debuffs from the ally that she targets, granting them a barrier, which is awesome. And here's the big thing: putting on damage limit. And I'm assuming this is just like Green Lilius's, Midnight Gala Lilius's damage limiter, so you can only take 33% damage, meaning that you have to get hit 3 times before you die. I I think you can just toss this on top of a tank, and they essentially become unkillable for 2 turns. Unkillable. That's crazy. And it's on top of that, it's also healing them as well. So I think this will be crazy. You get a barrier, you're limited on how much damage you can actually take. I think this is just great. Holy crap, I love it. Any ER unit, almost unkillable. It'll be awesome. We then look at her S3, which is just starting with giving her a really good buff. Being able to revive with 50% health and 50% CR is really good. It allows her to use essentially an ability. So if she dies, she gets to take a turn after it, basically, and I think that's really good. I think I would have preferred if they had given her extra turn with that buff, but you know what? Whatever. We'll take what we get, and we will throw a fit, but that's besides the point. I think this buff is really, really good. I'm excited to see what combinations that we can pull off with it. Just right off the top of my dome, I'm thinking of other units such as ML Ken being crazy with this, because I run mine on ER set. I think that's awesome. You could also use a bunch of other. Man, there's just so many good ideas that come to mind with that. So yeah, I'm excited with that. I think that'll be a really good use there. Silverblade Araminta, one of my favorite ML 5 stars that I never use because of immunity. And so many units now just being immune to stun, which really makes her difficult to use. Uh, I love whenever I get to use her though. So I haven't read any of this, so give me 1 second. So previously, attacks all enemies and increases the caster's combat readiness by 25%. Now we're going to be detonating burn effects on enemies at the end of turn. So she won't be as fast, but will have chance of putting people on fire and detonating them all. So that's interesting. Our passive. So before she used to jump CR whenever an AoE would hit everyone. Now we increase attack proportional to effectiveness. That's going to be interesting. The rate of attack increase effect does not change after it is activated. When ally except for the caster ends their turn, increase combat readiness of. Oh, that's interesting. That's not limited. I really like that S2. So she is jumping CR every time one of your units goes. I think that's really cool. I think there's going to be a lot of combo potential with that. That is cool. Her S3 getting a cooldown reduction, I think will be really big. And then just guaranteed burns. I think that combos really well with flame friction. I like that a lot. Yeah, that just looks solid. So, man, I think this means that you can build her slower with just the potential of other units having her CR jump like crazy. I think that's going to be really, really big. She does get, that damage just evens out there as we have a 10% here and we have two 5% now. And we just remove that effective chance. Yeah, I think that this will be pretty big for her. I don't think this is game changing. I think this just makes her a little more solid. It really depends on how much attack this effectiveness gives her. Maybe I rebuild her and I give her an effectiveness ring instead of an attack ring, and we'll see how much she gets out of that. Let's read some of these actual notes. So it doesn't tell us a rate of that. So we'll have to play around with that, see how that goes. Okay. LRK, let's see how you do. After being attacked, the barrier now grants allies for 2 turns. I think that's actually kind of significant. Because I've had a lot of times where my guys will go right after getting hit and they just don't get the benefit of the barrier. And the barrier isn't crazy, it's just an okay barrier. So I think that's actually a really good buff, having it last 2 turns instead of 1. That's good. I like that. I like that a lot. Alright, and discreet. Oh! Cooldown reduction! That's cool. Okay, I really like that. That's pretty unique. I really like that. That's going to trigger a lot as well, as long as he keeps on S3. That is really cool. I like that. So now he's going to be able to cycle other people's skills along with his skill 3. That's. Ooh, I don't have an idea of where I would want that. I just run Crow anyways. So this is kinda big. The only downside I see with that is that he's often faster than my other units to get that immunity up. That being said, this is just good. This is just extra stuff on top of it. I didn't think LRK needed a buff. I think all of this is really good. So, It's just extra sauce. I think that's going to be really great. All right, Commander Pavel. Uh, I don't know if you guys know this, but I think that Commander Pavel is actually bad. I think he's a win more unit where you put him in a team because you know that you're already cleaving them. It doesn't really matter what unit you put in his place. Is just generic. I do damage because I'm winning. So let's see what changes. Did they just make it so his soul burn deals damage? That's it. Yeah, Commander Pavel, still bad in my opinion. Moving along. Designer a little bit. Okay, how are we, so you no longer silence, you now do decreased defense? Hmm. I don't know how I feel about that. That's interesting. Silence is a really strong control ability that I don't think people put enough respect on. So that's kind of an interesting choice. She's kind of in that bruiser piece, and a lot of bruisers already have defense down, so I'm not crazy about her getting that. And grants increased defense and immunity for one turn. Ooh, the immunity is actually really good to keep her from getting controlled. I think that's actually going to be a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. That excites me. Before increasing combat readiness of all allies. So she's going to CR push as well. Wait, no, she already pushed. I didn't know that she pushed allies. Now it looks like she's just pushing herself as well. And penetrates defense. Huh. Okay. Does more damage now. Pushes herself as well. Okay. Yeah, I'm not upset by that at all. That looks like just a solid buff. And increasing the school to cooldown by 1. Wait a minute. Is that always there? It was always there. I never realized it did that. Yeah, it's pretty good. That's a damage buff. I think her S2 got the most significant buff out of this. Uh, the S1 I think is taking a lateral movement instead of a higher movement. So I guess she's going to be more damage focused. I guess. Uh, I kind of want to see that silence instead of the defense break, but that's okay. Moving along to Kayron. I wish Kayron was better, so now we are making Kayron better. I'm already happy about this. Damage dealt increased during counterattack. I like hearing that. This makes me happy. I always felt like he didn't do enough damage, so I'm happy to see this. Attacks the enemy with a sword and grants a barrier to cast for one turn when triggered as a counterattack. It changes into an attack that targets all enemies. Barrier strength increases proportional to caster's max health. Notice the damage does not increase based off of the caster's max health, making him an awkward build. And I kind of dislike that, but we'll move on. At the start of battle, end of turn, adopts counterattacking, so that doesn't change. Increases combat readiness of the caster by 100%. I feel like that would have just been a good jump to begin with. Now let's take a look at his S3. I wish it didn't say successful attack. I feel like that really hurts some of his matchups. So the cooldown increased. I think that's a mistake. Oh, I needed to scroll down more. That's funny. Damage dealt decreased, but the flat damage goes up. So, I think his main issue is still going to exist. And I think his main issue is that fighting spirit doesn't generate fast enough. I think it needs to probably be Greenlandy level of fighting spirit, where it's based off of buffs or something, and just let him rip faster. I think that's going to be his main issue. Because realistically, you're looking at 3 turns before he goes off, and I think that's just not enough, in all honesty. So I think his spirit fury, whatever mechanic was it's called, fighting spirit. Yeah, I think his fighting spirit needs a buff. I don't think all the times I've ever used him, I don't think I've ever procced his S2 passive. And the fact that it can only be activated once every 3 turns is kind of funny because there's absolutely no way he's ever proccing that a second time. You might as well say you can only proc this once a battle. So that's kind of bullshit. I think that this should be once every turn. That's kind of bullshit in my opinion. No, it can't be once every turn. Once every 2 turns, I think is better. If it's once every turn, you could just not rip it and jump to the top again. Although that that would be kind of a cool build, honestly. I think that'd be a cool character. Broken, couldn't play it, but that'd be cool. All right, and we got Melissa. Okay, so we removed damage increase based off of her lost health. This just looks like it makes it so she can cleave a little better. I'm not against that. I actually kind of like that. I think that makes that much easier. Increase attack cast for 2 turns when using Blood Bloom. Okay, I'm not against that. Let's look at says. So we deleted a wall of text and increases damage proportional to lost health. I don't know how I feel about that. Damage dealt increases proportional to the target's lost health. Okay. After being attacked, grants stealth, so he no longer has his stealth. After an ally, except for the caster attacks, when the target's health is 30% or less, activates Encroach. Encroach can only be activated once every 3 turns, and Encroach is a extra attack. It looks like that attacks all enemies, increases combat readiness of the caster by 30%. Damage dealt increases proportional to the target's lost health. So, okay. I don't know how I feel about that. Hmm. It's interesting, yeah. It's just a straight buff for cleaving. Uh, yeah, I think that's okay. It's got more cleave potential. I don't think it makes good. I guess he loses his stealth. I don't know how much is stealth. I didn't use Blue Says, so I don't know how relevant that'll be. It looks interesting though. Hmm. Different dispel on Elena. I think that's okay. This is big. Let's look at Mort. So, with max health lower than the caster's max health. So he just ignores ER of anyone weaker than him. Okay. And damage has increased. I like that. Attacks the enemy by piercing them with a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. Yeah, that looks good. I like what I see there. Uh, hmm. You just gotta make sure that you have more max health than anyone else. So now you're gonna have to be at 30,000, otherwise you're not getting those Senias. Immune to debuffs which prevent movement. So sleep, stun. I don't think there's any other. All heroes except for the caster cannot counterattack. Ooh, what? Does this affect your team as well? When an ally's attacked has a 20% chance of counterattack. Oh man. So we can just he just got a permanent Elbrus. It says an ally, so that counts himself as well. I I like that. Oh my goodness. Can be activated once every 3 turns. Grants skill nullifier to all allies and increases the speed to the caster for 2 turns. This is a massive buff. I don't know how I feel about the counterattacking part, but everything else about it looks crazy cool. So let's see on the Advent. Are we losing injuries? Inflicting fear. Recovering health of the caster. So we got defense penetration by 70%. And ignores effect resistance of any targets with max health lower. So he really likes having the highest health. That is cool. No longer dealing injury though. Fear cannot act for a certain number of turns. Oh my goodness. This makes Mort a massive control piece. Oh my goodness. I think he's going to be really good. So increase speed. I think he's going to be an HP speed demon now. Also, I want to point out he no longer requires the critical hit to activate his abilities, meaning that you don't have to run crit chance items for him. I think this is going to be crazy. Oh my goodness, Mort. I'm just going to stack HP and speed on you, and you're just going to fear the world. And we'll see how your damage increases with you not being on crit. See if that actually matters. Oh my goodness, that is massive. Let's see, Eula. So we increase the amount of damage reflected. I think that's a good change. I don't think it reflected enough, so that's cool. Symphony of Agony. Okay, Soul Burn is cheaper, but doesn't grant extra turn. Cooldown is lower. I don't know how I feel about that. I like taking extra turns. Blooming Litica. We're just adding defense pen, okay. I don't know if that was needed. Just gives her more defense penetration, I guess. That's kind of cool. Because I did feel like if she hits something that's on her same level of speed, she just does no damage with her S3, and that feels bad. But she's still a crazy good control piece before that, so I never really cared too much. So I think that's just okay. How are we affecting auxiliary lots? The cooldown nerf. Okay. Did we just not want to play auxiliary lots anymore? Is that the plan? Attacks all enemies with an 8% decrease. Okay, so he's now got a cleave ability with that. His S3. What is exploiting weak points? What is that? This is going to make you good clear. So it looks like we will be able to recall auxiliary lots, which that will be nice because depending on what exploiting weak points does, this could just be a dead unit unless you literally only needed that first push. In which case, I think he'll be good. I think he'll be better because he literally just does better. It just is a usability in certain PvE content. So we are getting him away from PvP. Okay. And yeah, they're talking about Spirit's Breath becoming problematic with his S2 just continuously being on cooldown and just letting it rip. Uh, which honestly I don't think is that much of an issue. But I think they're taking him into a new direction, and he wasn't meta, so I see it as an okay decision. Hopefully, exploiting weak points makes him viable again. I think this is going to be my hottest take. I don't know how the Oxlot's buff is going to work for him. I think reducing the cooldown might be too much of a nerf for him with these changes. Silence to defense break, I don't think matters at all. Typically, you were buffing people and using book on him to soul burn, so I don't think he's ever going to soul burn himself to get the defense decrease here. So I think a lot of people are going to be happy recalling him. I don't think he will be meta for PvP at all, but as I said, maybe he becomes useful in PvE, and I think he could probably do good work there. Peacemaker Furious, I'm happy for a buff here because he is terrible. Thank you YDCB for trying to use him. I always love seeing it when it happens. He was just so bad though. So if he has a buff, he instant takes that extra shot. So I think that's good. They move the soul burn, set in motion, increase speed and defense of all allies for 2 turns. So he no longer gives Indomitable to himself. So that's just a defense buff for everyone. Okay. I think that's better. I don't know how good that is. Maybe it's really good. I I just don't know if giving everyone speed and defense is enough to run him. Because giving everyone else speed before wasn't, and giving himself increased defense wasn't. So what about his S3? Attacks all enemies. I think he's still going to suck. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's going to really change anything. We're just getting the maximum amount of defense pen, which was 60%. Uh, I can't ever recall him doing crazy damage, so I expect that to just not be exciting, which is unfortunate because I think he's an interesting character. Uh, yeah, I think he's just too slow, doesn't survive combat, and yeah, I think it's disappointing. I don't really know anything about Veronica, so we're just going to skip that. Armin just got buffs straight across. Okay. Cruel Mischief. Okay. Increase attack in the Hall of Trials by 20 to 40%. Okay, so Cruel Mischief just got a damage increase to 40%, 10% more. I think that's good. Yeah, that's fine. Pure White Trust. This is a Hawk's artifact. Uh, yeah, what does it do now? Used to give speed after using a non-attack. Now it gains souls and increased critical hit damage with the caster for 2 turns. I think that could be good. I don't know who you put it on, but I think that could be good. You don't want it on Zahak because he wants to have the artifact that increases his hit chance. I don't know who you put that on. I'm sure I could put it on someone though. R and L increases attack by 10%. I don't know if you needed this for R and L. It already felt pretty good getting that extra turn every once in a while. Okay, that's a choice. So, hostess of the banquet, ER increased by 40% at maximum. When attacking, increases damage dealt by 5 to 10%, and when the target's health is 50% or more, increases damage dealt by an additional 4 to 8%. So at most you're looking at 18 instead of 16. At lowest, you're looking at 9%. So you go from 9% to 18%. Yeah, it's just a buff. It's just a straight across buff. I'm okay with that. It's not massive. I think that's honestly kind of weak, but whatever. I don't think you would put Hostess of the Banquet on people very often. It seems like a little bit of trying to do too many different conflicting things here. I wouldn't use it. I don't think this is worth using. Battle system adjustments. What we got here? Only one extra turn will be applied and no additional turns will occur in subsequent. Okay, so this is going to be like a RNL Rain, so I can't take 3 turns if I proc RNL during his combo. I think that's good. I think that's a solid quality of life change. Yeah, I think that's for the best, in all honesty. Ooh, I can get a Butterfly Mandolin recall. I don't think that's worth recalling. Yeah. So overall, I think this is going to be a really good buff. I think my winner for the buff roulette is going to be Rule of Light. I think she'll probably get the most play out of all of these changes. I think the next one has got to be my man Mort. Mort's looking crazy. Maybe we can get Kayron into the game a little bit more. I think Mort's going to be really, really cool. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and take care of yourselves out there. Bye bye now.